In the last video, we looked at Hamlet's decision to kill his stepfather and his hesitations, as well as King Claudius's inability to decide to take the path of salvation. Now, Hamlet is not sure if his stepfather killed his own father, so he needs proof. And the proof will be found in the playing of a play. This is a funny sort of proof because if we remember, Polonius used Hamlet's bad poetry to lay out the proof that he was lovesick. Now gather and surmise. To the celestial and my soul's idol, the most beautified Ophelia, that's an ill phrase, a vile phrase. Beautified is a vile phrase. But you shall hear thus, in her excellent white bosom, these, etc. Polonius's disliking of the adjective beautified is funny because, how does that work? She was already made beautiful. Who's making her beautiful? Him? And I love how he uses the etc. because the blazon that Romeo is making is just so bad that it's not worth repeating. But we don't know how trustworthy Polonius is either, right? We know that his use of figures in the scene right before this is filled with redundancies. In fact, it's funny because he is very reminiscent of the nurse in the way he uses vices or figures of thought that are defective. But he is right. Hamlet's verse is not good. Like, take a look at all these anaphors. Doubt thou the stars are fire, doubt that the sun doth move, doubt truth to be a liar, but never doubt I love. Oh, dear Ophelia, I am ill at these numbers. I have no art to reckon my groans. But that I love thee best, oh, most best, believe it, adieu. That's a quatrain of poetry. Is it a stunted sonnet? Hamlet's attempt at the modesty topos fails because he is ill at these numbers, and ill as well is a perfect term because his love sickness is reflected as well in the sickness of his numbers or meter. So that means that his meter is bad, and you could scan that stunted sonnet and see that it's not good. But it does raise the question, should bad poetry be used as a diagnosis for mental illness? And Polonius wasn't totally wrong. He was in love. He just needed to get beyond his youthful pursuits in order to kill his father's killer. But the symptomatic use of language is found as well in Hamlet's use of the play. The play itself will reveal the guilt of his stepfather. Now, in one of Hamlet's other big speeches, "Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I," he describes himself as an actor playing a role. Now I am alone. That practically announces a soliloquy is about to happen. Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I, like I'm the worst. Is it not monstrous that this player here, this actor, but in a fiction, in a dream of passion, could force his soul so to his own conceit, could force his soul to adhere to fanciful expressions or speeches or the role that he's playing, that from her working, all the visage waned. Like, so from the soul's working, the face grew pale, tears in his eyes, distraction in his aspect, a broken voice, and his whole function suiting with forms to his conceit, to the conceit of the play, its expressions, and all for nothing, for Hecuba. What does that mean? He's describing what Cicero says happens to the actor in De Oratore, or on the Orator, that in speaking the lines of the play, the conceit, the actor is not only convincing you, the audience, of the truth of what he's saying, but he's also convincing himself as he speaks the line. This is like the byproduct of rhetoric. As you try to convince others, you are also convincing yourself. Now, what about Hecuba? You already saw her statue in one of the previous videos. Hecuba is the wife of King Priam, who happened to be the king of Troy. And you know when Troy falls, Priam is killed, her sons are killed, and her daughter's taken into Greek slavery. Now in Euripides, she secretly plans a trick to murder the man who killed her youngest son, Polydorus, after the fall of Troy. No. She blinds him and kills his son, but in the end, she herself turns into a dog. He's thinking about Elizabethan theater. This is the young Hamlet, able to play girls. Or is it an older Hamlet playing women? Remember, women couldn't play on the stage. So who's playing Hecuba's role? Feeding her desire for revenge. Can the her refer to Hecuba as well as the soul? But Hamlet is wretched. He's a poor, useless slave. He's no Hecuba. All he can do is be the actor simulating action. In referring to the actor, what's Hecuba to him, or he to her, that he should weep for her? What would he do had he the motive, and that for passion that I have, he would drown the stage with tears and cleave the general ear with horrid speech, make mad the guilty and appall the free, confound the ignorant and amaze indeed the very faculties of eyes and ears. Yet I, a dull and muddy-mettled rascal, peak like Jonah dreams, unpregnant of my cause, and can say nothing. But then he has an idea. Needing to revenge his father's murder. I've heard that guilty creatures sitting at a play have, by the very cunning of the scene, right, the very erudition or eloquence or skill or artistry of the speeches, been struck so to the soul that presently they have proclaimed their malefactions, like they've confessed to the sins they have done. For murder, though it have no tongue, will speak with most miraculous organ. I'll have these players play something like the murder of my father before mine uncle. I'll observe his looks. I'll tend him to the quick. I'll watch him and pay attention to him closely. If he does make a move, right, pale, whatever, I know my course. In other words, he'll kill him. Hence the title of his play, Mousetrap. The play itself is done as a sort of dumb show. It's a kind of silent movie where actors play out the action without speaking in words. You find the dumb show in the stage directions. The trumpet sounds. Dumb show follows. Enter a king and a queen. The queen embracing him and he her. He takes her up and declines his head upon her neck. He lies him down upon a bank of flowers. She, seeing him asleep, leaves him. Anon come in another man, takes off his crown, kisses it, pours poison in the sleeper's ears, and leaves him. I want to point out that in Henry V, we will also see. I want to point out that at the end of Henry IV, Part 2, we will also find Harry kissing his father's crown. The queen returns, finds the king dead, makes passionate action. The poisoner with some 3 or 4 come in again, seem to condole with her. The dead body is carried away. The prisoner woos the queen with gifts. She seems harsh a while, but in the end accepts love. What's interesting is that the show provokes questions. How are we supposed to interpret it? Ophelia, what means this, my lord? Married this mitching Maliko, this sneaking wrongdoing. It means mischief. Be like this show imports the argument of the play. Like, she's happy that the argument of the play is now going to be presented, and then we see why. Enter prologue. We shall know by this fellow, the players cannot keep counsel or secrets. They'll tell all. Will it tell us what this show meant? Aye, or any show that you will show him. Be not you ashamed to show, he'll not shame to tell you what it means. Don't be afraid to ask. The prologue will explain what we're about to see. And you've already seen prologues on stage in Henry V with Oh, for a Muse of Fire, and also in Romeo and Juliet with the 2 sonnets. But every good text, remember, has to be interpreted. And as for the prologue, it's short. Instead, the player king and the player queen begin to act out the missing political component in the play, the slaughter of kings. The same slaughter we'll see on the stage in Richard II and in Macbeth. But before we jump to those slaughters, I said every good text. Hamlet is the co-writer of this play, so he's like Shakespeare, who collaborated with other writers in his earlier career and later. Here he tells the player that he's going to add some new lines to Mousetrap or The Tragedy of Gonzales. We'll have it tomorrow night. You could, for need, study a speech of some dozen lines or 16 lines, which I could set down and insert in it. Could you not? You still have to think of taste. Remember when Hamlet talks of a play he saw about Aeneas and Dido, and then they recite the lines? Is it good? It's clearly a pastiche, a comical imitation of a kind of English play based on Seneca. And Polonius, again, is funny. After that long Trojan speech, Polonius replies, "This is too long." Somehow I think we should trust him, right? He is older, he knows his arts. But Hamlet knows performance, even though Polonius was also once an actor, remember? Here's Hamlet functioning as a director here, and of course playwright. "Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue." This is the sign that original pronunciation, even American pronunciation, is closer to Shakespeare's pronunciation than the current British Shakespeare pronunciation, because it's the way their vowels are. But if you mouth it as many of our players do, there's a criticism. I, at his leaf, I'd rather the town crier spoke my lines. Nor do not saw the air too much with your hands, that don't like move your hands around, but use all gently. For in the very torrent, tempest, and as I may say, whirlwind of your passion, because the words are going to be passionate, you must acquire and beget a temperance that may give it smoothness. In other words, don't go crazy. Oh, it offends me to the soul to hear a robustious, pated fellow tear a passion to tatters, to very rags, to split the ears of the groundlings. The groundlings are the people at the bottom of the stage, remember? Who, for the most part, are capable of nothing but inexplicable dumb shows and noise. In other words, he hates scene chewers like Johnny Depp. And he should know, because the play within the play is all about revenge plays, right? Pure revenge. But when Claudius gets up and Hamlet remarks in the first folio, what? Frightened with false fire? A perfect remark to describe how fiction can incite reactions. He knows Claudius is guilty. And the next time we'll see them together, he will have a sword and Claudius will be praying. For the next episode, we're going to look at another play about kings, and also about revenge, and also about depositions, and also about murder, Richard II.
Alright guys, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that notification bell.